There's a version of yourself you've never met, but one that determines almost all of your choices. It lives hidden in the darkest corners of your psyche, whispering desires you deny having and motivating actions you swear you don't understand. Carl Jung called this hidden force the shadow, and he said that the day you finally encounter it face to face is the day you truly begin to live. Imagine for a moment that your entire life you've been walking in sunlight, proud of your image projected on the ground. You know every contour of this shadow that follows you, believe you dominate it completely. But Jung discovered something disturbing. The shadow you see on the ground is merely a two-dimensional illusion of the true darkness you carry within. The real shadow is three-dimensional, alive, pulsating, and it has its own plans for your life. For decades, Jung observed patients who came to his office convinced they knew themselves. They were successful, respected people who had built solid and admirable identities, dedicated doctors, loving parents, ethical professionals, but they all shared the same mysterious symptom, a growing sense of emptiness, as if something fundamental was missing from their lives. It was as if they were playing the lead role in a play, but never really knew who the character was. Jung realized these people weren't lying about who they were. They genuinely believed their own narratives. The problem was they were living only a fraction of themselves. Everything they considered unacceptable, primitive, or socially inadequate had been banished to the basements of consciousness. And there, in that forced darkness, these rejected parts didn't simply disappear. They grew, organized themselves, and began to exert an invisible but powerful influence over their lives. Think about the people who irritate you most. That arrogance you detest in some colleagues, that falseness that revolts you in certain friendships, that aggression you condemn in others. Jung would ask an uncomfortable question. Why exactly do these traits trigger such an intense reaction in you? Why, among thousands of human characteristics, do precisely these manage to get under your skin so easily? Jung's answer was revolutionary. You recognize these qualities because they also exist in you, not in identical form, perhaps not with the same intensity, but they're there, carefully hidden in the secret compartments of your personality. When you see your own shadow projected onto another person, your reaction isn't one of strangeness, but of recognition. A recognition that your consciousness desperately refuses to admit. This means that every person who crosses your path carries a mirror. The traits we most admire in others reveal luminous aspects we neglect in ourselves. And the traits we most despise, these reveal the shadow aspects we insist on denying. Your social life, without you realizing it, is a constant laboratory of self-knowledge, if you know how to read the signs. But here's the most fascinating paradox of Jung's theory. The more you try to be a good person, the more powerful your shadow becomes. Every time you choose the socially acceptable response over the genuine response, every time you suppress an impulse out of fear of others' judgment, you're feeding this hidden force. It's like trying to keep an air balloon underwater. The more force you use to keep it submerged, the more violently it will explode when it finally escapes. And it always escapes. Jung observed that the shadow has very creative ways of manifesting. It appears in your most disturbing dreams, in those fantasies you'd never tell anyone, in moments when you lose your head and act completely contrary to your conscious values. It reveals itself in your secret vices, in your inexplicable obsessions, in those situations where you simply can't understand why you reacted that way. But perhaps the most subtle and dangerous manifestation of the shadow is projection. When you don't recognize your own shadow aspects, you'll inevitably begin to see them magnified in the people around you. The world becomes a threatening place, full of people who seem to embody everything you most fear in yourself. You begin to live in constant warfare against external enemies without realizing you're fighting ghosts of your own internal creations. Jung told the story of a patient, an extremely religious and morally rigid man who was tormented by violent dreams and aggressive impulses he considered completely alien to his nature. For months, he insisted these shadow elements were external temptations, demonic influences that needed to be purged. Until one day, in a particularly intense session, he finally admitted, "Dr. Jung, I think the demon is myself." That was the turning point in his therapy. Not because he became a violent or immoral person, but because he finally stopped wasting energy fighting against himself. He was able to integrate these shadow aspects consciously and constructively, channeling his natural aggression toward causes that truly mattered to him, and his emotional intensity toward deeper and more authentic connections. If this idea has already resonated with you, imagine what comes next. Subscribe so you don't miss this journey of inner discovery that can completely transform your relationship with yourself and the world. The truth is that most people spend their entire lives running from the encounter with their own shadow. And Jung understood why. Recognizing that you carry within yourself capacities for things you consciously despise is terrifying. Admitting that you're not as pure, as evolved, or as different from others as you'd like to believe requires a courage that few possess. But here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your most powerful ally in disguise. Hidden within it are not only your most primitive impulses, but also your most extraordinary potentials. All the creativity you suppressed for fear of being judged, all the passion you domesticated to fit social expectations, all the life force you repressed to be accepted. All of this is preserved in your shadow, waiting to be rediscovered. Think about the artists who move you most, the leaders who inspire you most, the people you consider truly authentic. They all have one thing in common. They've made peace with their shadow aspects. They don't try to be perfect. They try to be complete. They've embraced their contradictions, their complexities, their human imperfections, and it was exactly this that made them magnetic and genuine. When you reject your shadow, you're not becoming a better person. You're becoming a smaller person. You're cutting away essential pieces of yourself, reducing your humanity to a sanitized and predictable version that might be socially acceptable, but will never be truly powerful or deeply satisfying. Jung discovered there's a fundamental difference between being a good person and being an integrated person. The good person avoids doing harm, but also avoids making waves. They're predictable, safe, but often empty. The integrated person, on the other hand, recognizes their capacity for both good and evil. And it's exactly this awareness that makes them capable of genuinely ethical and transformative choices. When you finally encounter your shadow, something extraordinary happens. You stop projecting your fears and inadequacies onto others. You stop living in constant reaction to the external world. You stop wasting energy maintaining an artificial image of yourself, and most importantly, you gain access to reservoirs of personal power you didn't even know you possessed. The shadow contains your anger, and anger, when consciously directed, becomes righteous indignation and force for change. The shadow contains your sexuality, and integrated sexuality becomes personal magnetism and creative energy. The shadow contains your selfish impulses, and conscious selfishness becomes healthy self-love and the ability to set boundaries. But there's an even deeper secret that few know. Jung discovered that the encounter with the shadow isn't a single event. It's a continuous process that deepens throughout life. Each new stage of development brings new shadow layers to the surface. Each crisis, each transition, each moment of growth reveals aspects of ourselves we hadn't yet known. And this isn't a problem to be solved. It's the very mechanism through which we become more complete, wiser, more truly human. Life isn't a journey toward perfection, but a journey toward integrity. And integrity means including, not excluding. It means embracing the totality of who you are, not just the pieces you consider presentable. Here's the revelation that can change everything. Your shadow isn't trying to destroy your life. It's trying to expand your life. Every unacceptable impulse that emerges from the unconscious carries vital information about unmet needs, unexplored potentials, aspects of yourself that have been neglected or repressed. Your shadow is like a brutally honest friend who's always trying to show you what you need to see, even when you don't want to see it. The day you stop running from your shadow and begin to dialogue with it, you discover it's not a monster, it's an oracle. It knows your true desires, your deepest fears, your most authentic needs. It knows where you're lying to yourself, where you're betraying yourself, where you're wasting your life trying to be someone you're not. When Jung said you begin to live the day you encounter your shadow, he was talking about this transition from a defensive existence to an expansive existence. Instead of spending energy constantly trying to keep certain aspects of yourself hidden, you can invest that energy in growth, creation, genuine connection. The life you're living now is only a fraction of the life you could be living. Your conscious personality is just the tip of the iceberg of your true nature. Your shadow isn't your dark side, it's your complete side. And until you recognize, honor, and integrate it, you'll remain a diminished version of yourself, living a diminished life, experiencing only a fraction of the possibilities your human existence offers. The encounter with the shadow is simultaneously the end of innocence and the birth of wisdom. It's the moment when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your own inexplicable reactions and begin to recognize yourself as the conscious architect of your experience. It's when you finally understand that you don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to be pure to be valuable. You don't need to be predictable to be loved. Your shadow has been waiting patiently for this encounter your entire life. It's there now, backstage of your consciousness, carrying gifts you haven't yet had the courage to unwrap. It knows secrets about you that could revolutionize your relationship with yourself and radically transform the quality of your existence. The day you finally look at your shadow and say, "I recognize you, I accept you, I want to know you," is the day your true life begins. Not the life you thought you should live, not the life others expected you to live, but the life that is authentically, irreducibly, powerfully yours. If this message touched something deep in you like this video, and subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear that it's possible to stop running from yourself and start truly living. Because the world needs your complete, integrated, courageously human version, not the edited version you think you should be.